have a conspiracy theory here. So yeah, you mentioned material costs in the UK there's a lot of goods on projects in the UK. The UK is a relatively small market. Many of the goods that delivered on projects come from
60%.
Yeah,
EU.
it's massive.
Yeah.
Germany is massive. The Netherlands is massive. Spain is massive.
Yeah. And it's not just the cost, but it was taking like 6 weeks to get through customs.
Yeah.
So it's speed as well.
Also, the EU's tactic the whole time as well, right? Make that as high friction as possible.
Yeah,
because they're the big market. Like anyway, it's such a stupid idea in the first place.
Yeah.
But
especially when you think about defense.
it's like if the US introduced their tariffs instead of like the US introducing the tariffs on that island of penguins, that island of penguins introduced the tariff on the US. Like you have no leverage, sir.
Yeah, they'll be calling any day now.
Welcome back to the Offsite Podcast, episode 9090. We're 10 away from the big 100. Will we make it? I am Jason Lancini, joined once again in studio live by Carlos Cavallo. Carlos, how are you, sir?
Very well, thanks. How are you? Good to see you.
Very good. We are about to take a victory lap and cue the celebration and applause. This is the weakest victory lap flex ever. We spotted that the guys over at Bricks and Bytes talked on a recent episode about the potential data center bubble, and something that we, I don't know, called is a fucking way stronger word. We talked about a month or two or so ago. I don't think we invented the idea. I think the world was largely attuned to this being a risk, but let's play the clips. Built around this massive growing space and demand, and the market got its a little bit of a wobble in the last few weeks, where there were rumors that Microsoft was delaying or shelving plans for different data center projects around the world. And recently it's been officially validated that it is indeed pulling back some of its planned projects.
In addition, Microsoft and Amazon are both scaling back data center projects amid signs of slower AI-driven demand growth. However, SoftBank CEO Masayoshi Son remains undeterred, ramping up internal resources to accelerate Stargate's rollout despite the delays. And there's a 20 to 30 person team currently working on the project to secure capital and move it forward.
Cool. Was that strong and compelling? Was that good to start the episode, Carlos?
It's that was
weak flex.
Victory lap for sure.
You got to take the wins when you can get them.
Yeah. We're like Michael Berry from the Big Short, right?
I watched that the other day. The guy with the glass eye.
Yeah. Good movie.
Wait, how we like him?
He predicted the housing market crash in the US.
I just focused on the glass eye.
Yeah, ours is equally as strong.
Which of us, if we were portrayed in a movie, would be played by Christian Bale? Neither of us.
I don't think any of us fit any of his characters.
All right, this week we're talking Germany's largest offshore wind farm project is one of the first to be entirely privately funded, leading, I guess, to an interesting discussion about, as a manager, project engineer, someone working on a construction project, is it better, easier, harder to work on private or state-funded projects? Next, we're going to dive into this freshly inked trade deal between the UK and the EU. And then finally, we'll take a look at what the community is saying with a post talking about hiring from the construction industry is most effective. Seconded from me, right? All right, let's take a look at this offshore wind farm in Germany developed by EnBW. Is under construction in the German North Sea. For those that don't know, it's about 80 to 90 Ks off northwest of Borkum and 110 kilometers west of Helgoland. Sorry, those are too geographic. Did that help anyone?
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Olu, sorry, mate. Can we have a conversation about how we're locating places for people to follow along?
Olu's he's a big fan of Germany, so that probably makes sense to him.
I can't triangulate that. If you gave me that, I wouldn't. You could give me a globe, I'd spin it, and I would be none the wiser. So anyway, it'll have a total capacity of 960 megawatts, which is enough to supply 1.1 million million households. That's the level of detail we like, which makes it Germany's largest offshore wind project. Notably, the project is being built without state subsidy, so it is a entirely private funded. Well, let's maybe talk a bit about the project, and then we can dive into. I've got some thoughts about whether I'd want to work on a private project or a government funded. But yeah, is this a project you're aware of? This is the location of the world that you track tightly.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of within that region. So I guess for more context, just go east from Newcastle. That's the bit of North Sea we're talking about.
Newcastle in the United Kingdom, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, not Newcastle on the central coast of Australia.
Yeah. Obviously, it's a good spot for wind. It's pretty savage conditions. You're never going to have idle turbines. There are some mega schemes around the area. So Elizabeth Island is one of the schemes we mentioned recently, where they're building an island just to pull the power being generated from these wind farms rather than everything being connected back to coast. So that connects Denmark, Germany, and the UK together.
Yep.
So yeah, loads in the region. It makes loads of sense. It must be quite a cool project to work on as an engineer. But the private element is quite interesting. I think I underappreciated the differences that you could see with private or public client effectively, because I thought immediately my mind went black and white. Well, the contract's the contract. Who cares who's above it? Why would you do that in different ways? But yeah, there's a few areas that I think are worth discussing from the actual finance side of things. Contract, obviously red tape, and then maybe your ability to innovate. You'd imagine those areas do swing or change quite a lot depending on whether you're working with a private customer or not. So I guess first with funding, I think you've done private projects. Is there a sense of, could the money stop? Is that a real thing on a private project? Because with a public scheme, the government will just keep bankrolling it unless it's a full Armageddon type situation.
Yeah, I think from my experience on working on, for context, the first few projects I worked on as a young engineer were privately funded projects, things like gas plants. We get the benefit of talking to people on projects in all different circumstances, and I'm reflecting on a bunch of conversations with folks running projects that are for private clients. My experience is that the dollars are watched much more
tight, profit and loss
tightly, yeah. Especially if it's a revenue generating asset, which for a private client it almost always is. I can't think of many projects where it isn't a revenue generating.
We think infrastructure, it's quite a loose return. Someone's made some sort of assessment of
about community benefits and stuff. If it's a government thing, there's usually like quite the business case drags in all sorts of theoretical benefits.
Whereas this is money back to the grid. Are we making more than it costs to build
if it's energy or whatever the case may be. It could be a toll road, for example, and opening the toll road is immediately revenue generating. The value of time is really closely monitored, and the ROI on the project itself. Usually that means that usually these projects have some amount of debt, some large amount of debt actually, in getting them developed, because the project is usually a large capital cost that has to get paid back or amortized over
someone's
the life
invested.
And so that means that there's no endless supply of money that you can get from taxpayers or issuing government bonds. And so the money to build the project is usually the money roughly to build the project, which then tends towards the projects being let, the contracts being let as hard dollar contracts. You're usually not getting 3,000 change orders.
Just get on with it.
Get this thing finished, because a day costs us some amount of money on the back end. And so as the contractor, I think the things that you get more of is ideas to save time are valued a lot more. Not to use the word frivolous, but like when you're chancing your arm on claims and stuff, you'll normally get pied off pretty quick. And they won't hesitate to go litigious on things that could cause costs to increase.
And with that, I think from a contractual point of view, big public projects, it's a contract everyone recognizes, and probably systems that help make it really easy to manage that contract. Private, you're probably going in a bit blind on a contract you've never seen before, with probably a pretty small team that won't be that helpful, other than rejecting claims that they don't think are fair. And
I think that varies by the industry. I'm sure private clients use the same of those public ones from time to time, but at least by region or whatever. But yeah, at least in my experience, they were contracts written for those projects and for those clients. And there'll normally be a clause somewhere that's on any topic. There'll be a clause somewhere in a document somewhere that's to the advantage of the client that just says, get on and build the thing, at least in my experience.
Yep. In terms of innovation, do you think like public, they like to spend money on innovation, but there's also like mandates and legacy systems and all the stuff that comes with it?
You mean like funding for innovation?
Yeah.
Oh, there's none of that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's probably none of it coming from the client, but you're probably pitching to your leader by saying, we will actually save this money if we buy this system.
Yeah.
It's probably the way it goes.
Yeah. It's definitely not like, I don't know, can we try out this piece of software? I don't know. The innovation is like, we need to build this wall. If we try this novel approach, we could build it 20% quicker or something.
Yeah.
Actually, we did exactly that on a private project. But yeah, usually it starts from a problem rather than, I don't know, a broad call for innovation that you might see on government jobs, which again are like, they might have this part of their business case, which is, can we bring the industry forward? Or, these kind of like loosey-goosey objectives. Yeah.
So I think, is it fair to say less red tape, more freedom, so probably an environment for high performers, but not for...
Yeah, it's like working in business versus government anyway.
Yeah, right? Yeah, exactly.
If you can make money and deliver a product that is quality, I think that's what gets rewarded.
Yeah.
And you might even see things like real monetary upside for early delivery.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
right?
Yeah. There'll be more avenues you can take to get there.
Yeah.
The rule set is probably not so tight.
Now, just returning back to the opening segment where we described in high detail this project, I went through to one of the links that was put in the research doc here, and there's a lovely graphic which just shows in a very rotating form the size and scale of this project, which is probably where I should have started. Did you know that this wind project in the German North Sea has a rotor diameter of 236 meters?
Shit, that's big.
That's massive.
That's a lot bigger than the one we mentioned 2 weeks ago, and we thought that was
like 150 or something like that. Yeah. And then the Baltic 1 and Baltic 2 wind farms are 93 and 120 respectively. And this is approximately double the size of that.
Sure.
That's the sort of and it's in 40-meter deep water.
Yeah.
Which actually probably isn't that deep relative to where some of them are. I think we talked about ones recently. Was it Empire that was...
It must be a very cool project to work on, but it's not for the faint-hearted, is it? The North Sea is rough.
Well, I flew in from Germany last night, and we were flying over what I imagine must have been the North Sea, because it was north of Germany.
Was it the German North Sea?
Yeah, I actually think, if I recall the location, it was approximately 85 to 90 kilometers northwest of Borkum and 110 kilometers west of Helgoland. As we know over, I did note how many wind turbines are in the ocean there. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah. And obviously the turbines, I think they have like a 25-year design life, something like that. You'd assume that the foundations they're putting in have a longer design life, so you can just switch out the top. I'm hoping.
I'd imagine.
Cool.
Moving on. This week would have been the week that we're recording it. And when this episode goes live, it will be some weeks ago. So we'll swap that out. This week, the UK and EU reached a significant new trade agreement designed to reset relations and reduce many of the barriers that have emerged after Brexit. We should have introed this section as the UK and EU hit undo on Brexit.
Yeah.
The deal aims to support British businesses, cut red tape, and open up access to the EU market and potentially add nearly £9 billion to the UK economy by 2040. Undoing the damage previously done is the bit that's unwritten there. As a UK resident and citizen and Londoner, Carlos, what do you think about undoing your beloved Brexit?
Beloved. It's a step back in the right direction that we should never have ventured from. But
what's the saying? Like, a step back from the wrong direction is a step in the right direction.
I was just trying to make it really clear that it was the wrong in the first place.
No, I think people got that loud and clear. But unfortunately, your previously recorded opinions will stand as well.
Yeah. Also, fortunately, I'm not even in the majority in that line of thinking. But so it's very fresh news. So a lot of the information that we're seeing is speculative to an extent. But thinking through some of the wins for construction based off of this deal that's been made. Well, we're going to be free from tariffs on imported construction materials.
Mm-hmm.
So that you would expect an immediate saving to projects. The increase in construction materials, I think there was a report on HS2 alone that it's quite a significant increase to cost across the scheme. So if we can get rid of that, an immediate saving. There are going to be more relaxed rules again for getting young workers over. So I think the stat was something like 10% of our workforce in construction pre-Brexit was from Europe. That cut down dramatically after Brexit, which means we can ramp back up again. So we shouldn't see as short a labour supply, hopefully, if we can actually convince people to come back. There is an element of we have to go back under some EU laws and regulations, but from what we've seen, I don't think we've detached from a lot of the ways that construction operates in terms of safety and others.
At least my observation from afar is that the EU regulations have just had their logo changed.
Yeah. So there's kind of there's not much of an ask to go back in. So it's these reversible direct savings should hit pretty quickly. It's hard to pick or point out any negatives from this in terms of construction. So
just before we go further into the construction thing, I remember when I was living here in the UK when the Brexit vote happened.
Yeah,
there's a big deal about fishing. Did they sort out what happened with the fishing?
Fishing, we've reopened waters to the EU for 12 years as part of the deal.
So it's a legit undo of Brexit, right?
That was the one that people got the most upset about.
And the blue passports.
We can now go back to the old e-passport desks. So we were in the other queue.
that tactic from Europe worked, didn't it? Yeah. Death by 1,000 cuts.
That was the direct consequence.
Shots fired.
So that's actually a huge win. Not so much for construction. But...
I have a conspiracy theory here. So you mentioned material costs in the UK there's a lot of goods on projects in the UK. The UK is a relatively small market. Many of the goods that delivered on projects come from
60%.
Yeah, it's massive.
Yeah,
it's Germany is massive. The Netherlands is massive. Spain is massive.
Yeah. And it's not just the cost, but it was taking like 6 weeks to get through customs.
Yeah.
So it's speed as well.
Also, the EU's tactic the whole time as well, right? Make that as high friction as possible.
Yeah,
because they're the big market. Like it's such a stupid idea in the first place.
Yeah,
but
especially when you think about defense.
It's like if the US introduced their tariffs instead of like the US introducing the tariffs on that island of penguins, that island of penguins introduced the tariff on the US. Like you have no leverage, sir.
Yeah, they'll be calling any day now.
So, so you mentioned the material costs, and you mentioned the labor shortage driving the cost of labor on nation building projects in the UK. Similarly, we've talked, or maybe in a related topic, we talked recently in previous weeks about how sections of High Speed 2 seem like they were, at least we've heard rumors of, paused, on the go slow, waiting for some period of time. Now, this would require alignment between branches of government.
Steady.
Do you reckon there was any chance that this was a strategic delay until this was changed, and then they can kind of wait until the market reopens and then get all the contractors to rebid and maybe drop the price of things?
Oh, it's a big enough scheme that you could influence.
It's a massive amount of money for the UK government. It's a big amount of money.
That's the type of thing that you'd be so conscious that report gets leaked that suddenly it's something that's much bigger than the cost of construction being meddled with by construction. It's a bit of a difficult spot to be in.
I don't imagine it's all for construction, but if you were the government, if you were maybe I'm saying it, I don't think that the changes were driven from construction.
Oh, you mean the pre-pause?
I'm thinking about HS2.
Here's a heads up, this might happen.
Then pause, then go back to your contractors and say, based on these new regulations, price again.
Yeah, because if they're not free issuing materials or have any clauses around the cost of materials, then you need a reason to reprice. and you need the reprice to happen after the news, because otherwise you're pricing it with the information you have at the time, which is
we've seen a lot of rumors and news in the market of like London terminus of HS2 being kind of kicked down the road and delays, and there's a lot of architectural finishes, glass, blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
But, you know, escalators, all those things are from Europe.
Yeah. The other thing is with that HS2 as the example. So you've got we've gone through in the past. There's the 10T network of rail across Europe.
Mm-hmm.
So like the big
Yep.
plan. And then there's that. If you look at that map recently, the UK just goes grey. So
Right.
it kind of connects Ireland, and that's about it.
Right.
If this is a longer term partnership that is deepening, if that reopens, you get funding from the EU to help complete the rail network.
It's almost like you should make one big market.
Yeah, that's a good idea. And then on top of that, there's also so if we looked through the Ukraine crisis, the cost of energy in the UK went crazy, and it was fine in Europe. But we're now almost
I don't know, fine, but yeah, maybe not as
bad.
The Germans would have something to I now need to represent the Germans that I'm living there. They would also say it went up quite a lot there.
Yeah, but like ours was substantial, but now in theory
theirs was substantial too.
No, we're selfish.
It was substantial for everyone.
But now it's almost a joint sort of grid efficiencies you should get. We should be able to buy energy cheaper rather than exporting energy. It's within the market. So,
it goes back to market leverage, right? The bigger the market, the more leverage you have. And so, you know, in a world where you have like a China as a big market, a US, you know, maybe they try to squeeze in Canada in there. I think there's a lot of argument that they try to bring kind of like not Mexico joining the US, but like if that brings that, what was the name? USMCA, that Mexico, US, Canada agreement. That's like a market. Yeah, the UK needs to.
It's almost like everyone that voted Brexit didn't have a background in economics.
That was Carlos speaking.
Yeah. So positive. It'll be great to actually see what these schemes come out and say, because this won't go under the radar. You would expect a serious saving for HS2 if everything we've just said is actually true.
Saving, or maybe behind the scenes there's a giant cost blowout.
A softening of cost escalation.
Yeah. Because, you don't know what's really behind the scenes. And, you know, the reason they're pausing a bunch of these things probably is because of massive cost escalation and funding. So I think hoping for a reduction might be wishful thinking, but
a reduction.
You can finish
new forecast exercise
that no one's seen.
Actually cost
the one that no one's seen. Yeah. But I think in general it's a super positive move. That, and then I don't know that the US agreement that was announced a few weeks ago makes much of a difference to the construction industry, but this EU one definitely does.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much construction material we pull from the US.
Yeah, very little, I think. I've not looked at the data, but anecdotally, I don't think very much.
Yeah, although I did see the sweet potatoes I ate last night were from America, which blows my mind that it can be efficient to grow
sweet potato
in America and fly them here.
It's probably not. They're probably stupidly expensive. They should be coming from Europe.
Yeah, that's true.
You're probably having to get your sweet potatoes. How bougie are these sweet potatoes yours? They're special. Was that an Uber Eats job? You sent someone on the plane?
No, they were raw potatoes ready to cook from America. Anyway, he's trying to push their chlorinated beef on us. So that's the next battle, because they like wash their beef in chlorine, and EU doesn't accept that. But he's trying to make us accept that. So it's coming to a Lidl near you. Anyway, off target.
Moving on. Final topic. So for this week's look at what's happening on LinkedIn, something we saw a conversation on LinkedIn about, which is something we think about a lot and probably interesting for those from construction listening, which is this idea of like why sales hires can fail in construction tech, which was a post around how to better hire for sales and construction. But I think one of the takeaways that was discussed was like there is a strong argument for, let's call it like hire the buyer or hire from construction rather than hiring from sales. You and I literally got off a couple of interviews this morning doing exactly that. So I think we're probably preaching to the choir. But how would you think about this idea of in roles, maybe if we generalize a little bit and think about why folks from construction are uniquely equipped to sell to or support inside of tech companies selling into construction?
Yeah, it's interesting because there's strong arguments on both sides, because for anyone that you hire, there's going to be an element of onboarding in an area they know nothing about and an area they know a reasonable amount. And you can
as in like if you're
based on industry or not industry.
To play back, you hire someone from sales, they might not know the detail of your workflow or part of the product, the thing that you sell. So they don't know, in other words, they don't know construction.
Yeah, exactly.
On the flip side, you hire someone from construction, they know deeply about the construction thing that you solve, but might know jack shit about sales.
Exactly. But if we think about construction, it's not like other industries where you can, like, someone's going to buy something from seeing an advert, or there's no quick wins. It's not this numbers game that if I call 1,000 people, 10 of them are going to buy it.
Mm-hmm.
It is a relationship game. It's about connecting with people. It's about having this mutual disgust and love for the industry that you can actually have a conversation around what construction is really like, understand their problems, and not feel like you're from a sales background. So 99% of our job is not closing deals. It's developing an understanding and building a relationship to get to the point where they just want to buy the thing that you have, not because you've flashy sold them something and hoping that they'll buy. You can see why half of our calls is us just shooting some shit with someone, because we've been there. We understand what they're talking about.
Yeah, this is like super timely because we had this conversation on an interview not more than 2 hours ago. And we talked about it literally in our company offsite a week ago. What's, I guess, unique about the construction industry is that the people that are delivering projects, so thinking really about, on the ground delivering projects, are faced with this unique circumstance where they're on a project where, it's a collection of all these companies that come together to deliver this thing, then they disband. So they don't have, there's a lot of misaligned incentives that happen on projects between companies and also within a team. Like the safety team may not be incentivized to deliver the project as quick as possible. They're incentivized to deliver it as safely as possible. You get all this kind of like misaligned incentives.
Yep.
The subby wants to make money, but you want them to get the work done quickly, all that stuff. And so the people trying to run the project are always faced with their counterparts or the people that they're trying to deliver this thing with, always being a little bit not on their side. And so getting something done is just a lot of hard
house of cards.
It's a lot of hard work. You kind of have everything. You got to fight to get everything to line up, and it only takes one thing not to be ready for the work not to start. So you kind of need like everything being a green light, because one red light stops the whole show. And so that creates this environment, at least in my view, that on a project you are absolutely craving someone that's a genuine partner that actually wants to help you, because they're so rare. A software vendor or technology vendor who is genuinely trying to help a customer has a unique opportunity to have people in their team that know that person's world, that are helping first, that could be like that trusted partner. Yet so many of them hire the, ex HubSpot or Salesforce sales rep that's in there slinging them a few buzzwords, trying to close a deal, go for some drinks, and then fly away. And that's just, this industry is a show me industry. The word spreads, good and bad. And so you need people that are going to dive in and solve problems for a customer, not someone that can crush the best demo you've ever seen.
And the other benefit with specifically hiring from construction is there's a match in the pace setting. You can imagine some industries going to sales suddenly feels like you're doing 10 times more work than you did before.
Yeah.
Construction's already an industry where you're grinding out long hours and doing volume. And all we're doing is matching the pace that they're doing and doing that at scale. So there isn't that sudden lift where you're like, oh shit, this is demanding, because we're used to it.
For people from construction, it's like a really awesome opportunity. Obviously, I'm talking my own book here, but like you can take a skill set that you have developed over a long period of time in how to deliver projects. You can take that and apply it where you can work with, instead of one project for 2 years where you have to stay there and learn through the whole project, you can work with 100 projects or 50 projects, depending on the scale of the solution that the company you're working for. And you could see them be successful, unsuccessful over a long period of time. You get like this crash course in project delivery. You can take your skill set, you can get that insight, you get this benefit of not having, you get this like flexible working arrangement. You also now in control of your own destiny. You don't have to wait till the next project to ask for a pay rise. You can go and you're in control. You can make whatever money you can make. And you can honestly, you make a boatload more money than you would have made staying in the industry. So yeah, it's not for everyone. It's definitely for people that are really hungry, self-motivated, but it's, I think, for people that want to make the change, I think it's a wildly positive thing, and people should think deeply about it.
There's lots of open roles at Apex at the moment. Right. I think we have run out of time. So thank you very much, everyone, for listening to today's show. If you did enjoy the episode, please do think about liking the video or following us on your chosen podcast platform. We really appreciate your support, and we'll see you all next week.
Bye-bye.